Record one time. We are now live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everyone's a Critic podcast with your girl Queenie and your boy Kojo, where we discuss TV shows and episodes from them. Welcome. Hello, Kojo. How are you doing?
I'm good, Queenie. I'm good. Sun's out. I've got some coffee. I don't have a headache today. That's also lovely. Yeah, I'm in a good space. How are you doing? What you drinking? What you got?
Got coffee as well. My little IKEA cup. Just chilling, man. Like, you know, living the dream, I guess someone would say.
When I was working in a while ago, I was working in doing food catering for film sets, a temp job. That's that phrase, like, how you living? I'm living the dream. How you doing? I'm living the dream. Was always uttered. It's so like every set, like, oh, living the dream. And I wrote like a written piece just with the title "Living the Dream" because it was stuck in my head, so I can never unforget that phrase or untie it from that time.
There we go. I like to the point where I'm wearing pink, and you know me, right? I don't wear color. Like, I wear black, white, and that's really almost where it ends. I'm wearing pink, guys.
Good day.
Not even like a blue or a green. I'm wearing pink. I'm living the dream.
It's a good day. All right. Great. Well, today we're talking about Atlanta episode 4, 5, and 6. We're going to talk about them in order. Beginning with episode 4, obviously, and then we'll round off with episode 6. And maybe that takes us actually to the middle of the season. We're going to do a mid-season chat, which will be over on our Instagram page. So do follow Everyone's a Critic Instagram. Hopefully you get some people involved in that as well. We do like to keep it conversational, and then you can jump in and let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you found the season so far. Has it lived up to expectations? Where do you see it heading? Because there's a clear theme that I'm seeing throughout the season that I'm sure we're gonna dive into in a bit, or themes. But yeah, beginning with episode 4, the big payback. This episode, just in terms of its structure, begins with we're following this white suburban gentleman. I've already forgot his name. Do you know his name?
Oh, I do know his name. I've forgotten though. But while you're talking, I'll find him. This white
suburban gentleman. Everything looks rosy for him. He's living his life. He accidentally steals a little Madeleine cake. No problem. No issue. No harassment. And he eats it. You know, his life is hunky dory. Everything's great. On the radio, we overhear this. Sorry, go. Marshall. Yes. Over the radio, we do hear that they're narrating this legal case, which is basically a person, an African-American person is currently suing another person who their family essentially were slave owners. This white family owned the African-American person's family as slaves. And this case went in favor of the African-American and in essence set a precedent that if your family has owned slaves in the past, you have to pay. You have to pay up for it. You have to pay. You have to pay. So as soon as I remember kind of watching this episode for the first time and being like, my notes, oh wow, this episode's gonna be spicy. This radio session, this episode's gonna be spicy. I knew it was gonna be a banger. I did think it was a bit too soon to step away from the main cast into this kind of this surreal, kind of separate timeline. Maybe that's a separate timeline or alternative world, but the episode paid off for me. I really, really enjoyed it. Broadly, how did you find the episode? What did you think?
I loved the episode. I think again, going into that whole theme of surrealism and stuff, it's so great that we can use surrealism and see how far and where our imagination can take us.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also it's really not that far away, I don't think. In as much as it's surreal, it was done so well. I can imagine it happening in the near future, where a case would be brought forward where someone would say, oh, you know what, I know you for a fact that your family used to own my ancestors, pay up now. And even to the point where they had so at the end of the episode we see Marshall, who is now working at a restaurant, and he now pays these reparations as part of his tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you guys are giving us great ideas here. Like, this is a fantastic idea. What do you mean? Like, of course, like, why wouldn't you receive 15% of your monthly paycheck? Hello. So I think that's one of the main reasons why I really like Atlanta, because they do put forward these quite like seemingly absurd or seemingly surreal like scenarios, but they are well within reach if we just tried.
I did think, going off that, so I did think I really liked how this episode was delivered. Jumping towards the end, where Marshall has been on the run from Shaniqua, who is the descendant of slaves that or enslaved people that Marshall's family owned, getting her money, chasing her check. And so he runs to a hotel and he meets a person in there called Ernest. Ernest is also the fisherman from episode 1, who was on the boat speaking about how the town underneath them was flooded, like the river that they're fishing in was previously where a town, a black town, was based. And then Ernest, right off the bat, when Marshall was sort of harping on about how absurd this all is and how ridiculous this is, Ernest's response instantly was like, I don't know. And then he walks over, sits down with Marshall, and is like, he lays it out for him. And he lays it out in a way which I'm like, oh, it's really important to have a white person, have this come from a white person and come from a black person. Because I think if you're trying to make, this is why it's kind of generally important to have allies across the spectrum, because some people only listen to other people who look like them, who represent who represent like their upbringing and their background. But what Ernest basically says, which I really like, is that he speaks about reparations being justified first and foremost, in that slavery isn't a mystery from the past, like, but the fact that it's a ghost that haunts Black people, African Americans, every single day is something we live with. And I say we in terms of looking at like Black community across the world, but obviously speaking specifically about African Americans in this case. But it's a ghost that people live with, and that beyond that, history has a monetary value and confession is not absolution, which I thought was like a godly line. Just owning up to be like, hey, yeah, slavery's bad, we wish it went differently, is not absolution, because this country, Western countries across the world, are where they are because they were built on the labor of slaves, and the descendants of those people have been oppressed by the systems which are propping up these countries and propping up these structures. I think he also goes on to say, with the fact that they are now paying reparations, that the curse has now been lifted, and instead of running from history, they're now free. And then he decides to kill himself. But that whole what he was saying, I was like, wow, this is important to have vocalized in this manner, because this is a discussion. I mean, it's a discussion which we have like amongst friends, amongst circles, and with people on the internet. But to kind of see it again in this format, to see it delivered in this way, and then to see at the end how, you know, the world hasn't burnt down. Marshall's got a job, but he's also like providing some wages, some of his wages to obviously Shaniqua's family. He looks at Shaniqua's Instagram and kind of sees how she's also a loving mother as well, which I thought was, I didn't really catch it on my first watch, but I think it's important to just show how people are, you know, multidimensional. She also has a family she's catering for, as well. And
that's actually a really good point that you've just made, in terms of like showing that the world won't end like when you right your wrongs, like when like, or when you put your money where your mouth is, like the world isn't going to end, like we will just adjust. And I thought it was really, really nice that they did that. But back to your point about Ernest, even see how it went straight to go and call him Ern. I feel like
friends call me E, as he said.
yeah and I feel like there's something like why do you think maybe he has the same name as Ern? Like,
this is the Atlanta cinematic universe. This is the Atlanta multiverse we're getting into right now. This is the the ACU or the AMU. I don't know what's going on, because it's obviously intentional. Here's where I'm confused. but I'm sure it'll become clearer later on. Because in episode 1, when we first see Ernest on the boat, Ern wakes up from a dream from that moment. So Ern was dreaming of Ernest. So we were led to believe Ernest was fictional. I mean, again, this side, this whole other universe, it can be purely fictional. Like maybe this is all Ern's dreams, but I don't know. I wonder if we're gonna see Ern and Ernest meet. Like, I wonder if that's gonna be a thing later on in the show. I hope so.
I feel like that's actually really good though. Like maybe when we do see Ernest, as in white Ernest, like that's all in Ern's mind. So that whole episode was maybe just like a dream sequence, dreamed up by Ern. Maybe we'll get another kind of fixture episode like that where we see Ernest again, although he did kill himself, so I'm not sure.
This is what, if we see him again, then we know it's obviously fictional because it ended with him taking his own life. We know it's fictional at that point. But then I just wonder what the significance of his character is. Because he's been go on.
I think the significance is exactly what you said before, which is sometimes you need someone who like looks like you or you perceive to think like you to explain things to you. And I feel like as Black people watching these episodes, like this is, I know not all Black people are a monolith and all of this, and like, but there's certain things that we will understand and we'll take from that episode that like maybe someone who isn't Black wouldn't quite understand. And so maybe like, in as much as Ernest was a vehicle for Marshall, he's also a vehicle for like everyone who isn't Black, basically, or not just Black people, but do you know what I mean? And
for the audience, he represents. I mean, he's speaking to the audience. Doesn't represent anyone. He's speaking to the audience at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe like that's like almost like a narrator guide, kind of character, which is nice.
I thought feels like the most Black Mirror episode of Atlanta that I've seen.
Yes.
It just felt like watching a Black, where everything just felt dystopian because we're seeing it from Marshall's perspective, where it's like, oh no, this is chaos. We didn't see like Shanika was scary at first because before she was just in the car, you see just looming cars, like, oh, who is it? Who's it gonna be? We don't see her perspective. We don't see her talking to her family. We don't get a sense of who she is outside of, chasing down Marshall for reparations. So it feels there's that sense of anxiety when watching this episode, that I just thought was a good change of pace that I haven't seen this show. Kind of I haven't seen anxiety in Atlanta, but it just felt so like sci-fi dystopian, like, which I thought was very interesting. This also might just be me off the back of watching a lot of Severance, where I'm like, sci-fi is gonna kill us all. But it's I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this episode.
I think if there's one thing that I really like about Atlanta, it's like it is world building, isn't it? Like, and you've said the ACU, and I think that's like the perfect way to like describe it, because I guess we'll get to it when we get to like episode 6, but I would just like to say that was a great point that you made, and we will come back to that when we speak about episode 6 later.
Cool. Any other thoughts on episode 4? Do you want to jump to episode 5?
No, we can jump. So episode 5 was, they were in, Paperboy and Darius found themselves, and the white Liam Neeson
Socks,
who they met in London in episode 3, I believe. They find themselves in Budapest. Were you shocked to see Socks on this tour? Because
of course, I was like, why is Socks here? Why is Socks here?
Who's this guy?
Okay, I guess.
And so, he's Paperboy is still on tour, he's in Budapest, and he loses his phone. and that concludes the episode. Like, he loses his phone. They think it's the concert hall owner's
nephew.
But then we find out that it wasn't him at all. It was Socks, their friend. Now, I just want to know why he did it. And I hope we find out why, because for right now, the sense isn't sensing. Like, you really took Paperboy's phone for what? Because you threw it away. So, very, very interesting episode. I liked how it was kind of like NCIS-esque, like in their good cop, bad cop bag.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the Paperboy like really vulnerable actually was quite nice, and him trying to be a good cop. Trying to be a good cop, and you know, really plead with this 32-year-old who looked about 17, you know, to try and get his phone back. But obviously the boy didn't have it because it was Socks, their friend, all along who had it in the first place. Yeah, a lot of nothing happens in this episode, really. But it was still quite funny to watch.
It was an interesting change of pace from the previous episode. I was glad to see the gang back together again. And then, as you mentioned, seeing Socks was like, why is this fella here? Yeah. But then his dynamic, I think he brings a welcome dynamic to the group in how jarring he is. I would say, right. and how annoying he is. I think he brings a bit of a fresh dynamic to the group. And I say that because the way the group is kind of constructed at the moment, or just being, there's a bit of awkwardness around it. You know, Ern and Al aren't as close anymore. Darius is still kind of just floating about doing Darius things. He doesn't really have a strong flowing dialogue with the other two characters. So to have this other person join who kind of unites the three of them in their bewilderment and perplexity at some of the things he says, I thought was like, okay, this is cool. Anyway, so the boy, his name, just as you were talking, I was like, I know his name is I know he had a name, Wiley. Wiley obviously becomes the main suspect of the theft of Paperboy's phone, based off how strange he is. Like, he's being very coy, but very elusive, just slippery. Yeah. For no reason.
But like even before Wiley gets there, the whole thing is quite strange, because even his uncle is like, well, I don't have his number. Like, I don't have my nephew's number. And then Ern's like, you don't have your nephew's number? And he's like, no. And then as the episode progresses, you realize that like the boy's actually been to juvie, and like and the uncle hasn't seen his nephew for like 16 years, like for like 4 years or something. And like, so
since he was a baby, he's like, I haven't seen him since he hasn't seen him at all. He doesn't know who this fella is. He's like, you have to go to the second runner to get his phone number.
Yeah. And so the whole episode was definitely set up as if like it was gonna be this one guy. But there's very, very slippery, and
there's not a lot of time in this episode, I think, to unpack. But the main thing is the vulnerability that we get from Paperboy towards the end of the episode, where we understand that the reason he wants his phone so badly is because for some time now he struggled to write. He struggled to feel creative. He's seemingly just been going through the motions of being a superstar. And at some point off screen, he had, you know, that feeling of lightning striking you. Like, he picks up on a melody, he records a melody on his phone, and he feels like, oh wow, this is the melody to kind of get me out of this slump. This is what's really going to help me. Because I think there's a lot going on mentally with Paperboy he's kind of struggling to deal with, and you see him try to talk to Ern, like have a serious conversation with Ern, and it doesn't play out. It just kind of cuts abruptly. I don't think he has anybody around him that he can talk to about, you know, the level of stardom that he's now found himself in. Because Ern is also super focused on management. Ern's like, I'm gonna do my job the best. And I think with Earn, it's because his character was probably still afraid to ever go broke again. Earn has come a long way, like a long way. It's like, I'm going to make this work. I have a daughter. I'm going to make this work. And that's where his focus is, because season 1, season 2, he was just fucking up. It was always just fucking up on different things.
Yeah.
But
and to see like that relationship between Earn and Alfred is like, it has changed like a lot. It's like mostly strictly professional now.
Yeah.
Like to the point where like Earn doesn't, it seems as though like Earn doesn't even like ask Alfred like questions, in terms of like, he just does what Alfred wants, basically. Like, I need wings, or I need a new phone, or I need this, and Earn's just like, cool, got it, cool, got it. But like, I guess then in Earn's manner, there's no time to like slow down and just check in with with Alfred to see how he's doing, like personally. And then when you've got someone like Darius, who you would think like would be that person,
would you?
Oh no, I would to a certain extent, because of how eccentric he is. I would think that he would show some mind, personally anyway. Some mind, like, you know, that's just me personally though.
I just don't know what, if you're I can see Darius being useful, like in terms of, I mean, you might be dealing with something and want to have a conversation with him, and he might just help you see the world differently, so useful from that perspective. But I don't think, if you're going through, we just haven't seen enough from Darius in terms of, actually, maybe you're right.
He helped Vanessa for like no reason.
I think in his own way, he can be useful
in his own way.
To help people.
But maybe for Alfred, it's not the kind of help that he
like, I just can't see Alfred sitting Darius down and being like, yo man, I'm going through some stuff, and then Darius being useful in that scenario. But maybe I'm being too harsh a critic on Darius, because like you mentioned, there are moments with him helping people just see the world through a different lens, and that's also very important. I'm curious to see where this goes in terms of Paperboy's creativity, if that's gonna be a reoccurring storyline down the line, if people are going to be looking towards him to like make another album or make whatever, and see how that positions him. Because we haven't really seen, we see now the management in terms of the tour, but I'm curious about what their relationship is like with if they have a label, what that looks like in terms of receiving an advance, having to pay back in terms of producing out, things like that. I wonder if that storyline is going to kind of develop into something bigger.
I really do like this. I really do like this storyline as well, because like, you just know that we're going to get a nugget of what Donald Glover thinks about the industry. Do you know what I mean? And like, about his part in the industry, and we kind of see that in episode 6, which we'll get to. But like, and like, what should we be doing with our fame? What should we be doing with like the money that we get? But yes, it would be nice to see like how creativity will like play a role in that, and what happens when you do need to make another album and the labels are calling you like, yo, we needed it yesterday, and you're like, my brain is literally off. I can't write. And if Alfred succumbs to that or not.
I think in some ways, I think that really seems like the natural progression of things, because they've just been on tour. They haven't been living life. They're just doing like, I'd say doing real things, but in some ways that's the best way to phrase it, because it's a theme of what the streets think, being real, being fake. Like, those are also recurring themes of, being so far removed from life that, you're no longer experiencing this. And I'm saying that because I've also heard other musicians talk about this, about, to be creative, you have to just, I mean, if you're a good like artist or good musician, you're pulling from your experiences, you're pulling from your perspective on things. And if you aren't taking time to just live, so not just to perform and to do like exhibit things, if you're not just taking the time to live and build up these experiences, you don't have a strong frame of reference to pull from. So I wonder if Al and Earn are going to be so far removed from life in Atlanta. I think it's also really poignant that they're not in Atlanta for this season. Like, it seems like so far removed from life, like their life, that it sort of harkens back to that ivory tower analogy I think we've already mentioned in the previous episode. Like they're, these are actual Owl's an actual star. Like he's an actual star. So I just wonder how this storyline is going to continue to develop, and when if the next season, final season, is about kind of coming back to Earth or finding that middle ground, because season 2 he was in the streets and he was getting robbed. He was going through a whole bunch of stuff. Season 3 he's in the echelons and he's so far removed from like everyday people that I want season 4 is going to be about kind of establishing that balance and what that looks like. So agree. Anyway,
season 4 will be I think about that and about not coming back down but just plateauing maybe. And fine. I remember I was watching an interview with Steve, what's that guy's name, Stephen Bartlett, and like Wretch 32. Stephen Bartlett, he does like those podcasts with, like, he did the one with Molly May.
Okay, don't know, I haven't seen it.
He's like a self-improvement, self-empowerment kind of guy.
Cool.
And Wretch 32 was saying that he used to live in a flat, but then like when he got big, like he decided to move to like some gated community somewhere but everyone has told him to buy the house that to buy the flat that he was renting. And he was like, no, like, why would I want to stay there when I can like live in a gated community? And he was like, that's like one of the regrets that he has, basically, of like not like building up where like, where he lived, where he was from. And so maybe that will be like a similar like struggle maybe that Paperboy has when he comes back. Because I hear it, and again, like you said, like a lot of artists will tell you about how like there's a song called by PJ Morton who like, and it's called Buy Back the Block, basically. So like it's all about making sure that you're building where you're from better rather than just like moving out of where you're from. Which I think, it's quite important.
Reinvest in your hood. Would you say reinvest in your hood is about reinvesting? I
would say reinvest in your hood. I would say that, which brings us right on to episode 6.
Episode 6. White fashion. So yeah, episode 6 in a nutshell. A high-end fashion label. A designer seeking inspiration from Central Park produces this one t-shirt inspired by Central Park with the the print on the back saying Central Park 5, and Central Park 5 obviously being a reference to the Central Park 5 situation in New York in America, where five boys, really true because they were children, were arrested and accused of this heinous crime against this woman, and were falsely charged, falsely imprisoned, and it's super upsetting. It's actually heartbreaking to kind of see their story play out. This fashion label now has to apologize because we made a mistake. Like, we made a mistake. Sorry. And then they drag. I say they drag, but really they pay. In essence, they pay for Paperboy. They pay for some other Khalil, some other, like, I was gonna say Damar. They call him Dozell. I'm just going to say Dozell. They pay for some other like kind of black figures, to appear on this panel, and as a form of apology, and it's a form of restorative justice that we've heard. We apologize. We're making amends. We didn't realize what we've done. We're moving forward. Now look at our diverse. Look at these blackies we have here. It's very much look at these blackies. Like they're like there's our people.
If they're okay with it, you should be okay with it.
So Paperboy now finds himself in a situation where he's the spokesman for diversity, and interestingly enough is the most credible person in the room, which is problematic in itself, given that a few minutes ago Ern was the one saying, yo, we can use this to make a change, get on the board, learn how these organizations function, and start our own non-profit to help the community. And Paperboy was like,
nah,
I want shoes. I want shoes. I want free clothes tailored for 3 years.
And Paperboy, he was kind of coming from the viewpoint of like, look at like the people that came before us who tried to do the same thing. What happened to them? They died. Like they weren't assassinated.
They got killed. Yeah.
So Paperboy was very much like, listen, when am I ever going to get clothes like this? Like, this is for my stylist. Like, this is then my stylist can
designer
sure
bags for the babes, all sorts.
You know, he's out here like ultimately looking out for himself.
Yeah.
But obviously for he's kind of like, let's think about the greater good. Let's think about the greater good. And again, like I really like that Ern is saying this, because obviously it is Donald Glover who is charged as Gambino. So it's like nice to hear, like, I would like to think that he agrees with this. I feel like he probably would have ex-nayed it if he didn't agree with it. But it's just nice to hear like his viewpoint on matters such as these.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I did think so this season keeps coming back to the point of selling out. Selling out in reparations or giving back I'll say giving back broadly, because it talks about we discussed in episode 4 with the big payback, giving back to communities which have been disenfranchised, which have been, are living with the ghosts of slavery. And now talking about giving back, reinvest in your hood, as it was like phrase, but like giving back to the community, like in genuine ways. So from that side, but we also see it from the perspective of, Black people in these spaces and the idea of selling out. Like Paperboy was in essence a sellout until when he was in that room and faced with mirrors of himself and was like, oh, this isn't it. I do think, I do like that, because there's this sense that in, like, I don't know, I see this, a lot of people talk about this all the time. Oh, if we just get Black people in those spaces, it'd be great. A lot of people had the perspective that once Obama got elected, racism was over. Like racism was, you have a Black man in the highest office in the land. Racism is done. What are you talking about? But not understanding, I think that was the first kind of real like moment where people saw, oh, the system is above the individual. Like, just because you are a Black person in this space doesn't change the system, so to speak. So seeing Black people like Paperboy, Khalil, Dozel in these spaces where you're like, oh, it doesn't just mean if you put a Black face in there that everything's going to change, because they can also, and often do, impede progress, because you have these companies now thinking, we've done our part. We gave you tickets to Black Panther. Like, or we donated to this charity, like some smaller amount, which might be owned by one of the people, whatever. We bought 1,000 copies of this like D&I book, How to Diversify Workforce, whatever.
Imagine.
So I really did like that take on the idea that, just because you have a Black person in the space doesn't necessarily change things. It doesn't.
And also what struck me as well was like when they were having this initial meeting with Paperboy, and Paperboy was just like, well, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, and was just like listing off everything that he wanted. And the guy who was at the head of I forgot his name, but the guy who was the head of the fashion company was just like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, like, we'll sort it, it's done, whatever. They were obviously very clear that they wouldn't be able to pay him because they wouldn't be able to pay him monetarily because it wouldn't look good, but they could give him everything else he wanted that wasn't cash in hand, essentially. But I just thought that was like they just needed the issue to go away. They were willing to do anything to make sure that it did. Which is like the epitome of like disingenuous and like not really wanting to understand the issue at hand at all. Like to like, even when they were in the press conference, like they still weren't understanding why people were upset with what had happened and what they did. And I think a lot of people feel that way about a lot of companies today, not just companies, like workplaces, schools, like a lot of like institutions and systems, like you said, that are just using Black faces as a means to justify, like, oh well, this person said that, it's okay, so don't have to worry about it.
It's all good. It reminded me of when Donald Trump was when he was actually president, and running for election. But you have these, like, again, Black women, Black men, who just Black people who they would cherry pick who are to support him, and like just do the paper ups, because you're like, oh, it's great. And again, Black people aren't a monolith. Everyone has different political views all across the spectrum, whatever. But you can see when people have been chosen solely to tick the box, solely to appeal to this community, in disingenuous ways. So I did like how this episode was a bit more nuanced in how it's presented, like, and how it presents these points and how it makes these, that advances these arguments.
I really liked also how I really liked
go
on. So there's a point where I'm gonna talk about the video. So Paperboy has like an idea where he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna reinvest in our hood and like we're gonna use money that we've got from the company to make a campaign to make sure that the company can give money to like Black fashion stars or whatever in the local communities to help grow them and all of this stuff, like an incubator kind of program to make sure that we're giving back to communities. And they come back with this really shoddy video using Paperboy's voice in just using his voice basically to like sell this idea as like some weird campaign video, completely not what he was talking about at all, taken completely out of context. And so obviously Paperboy then riles out about it. He's not too happy about it. And then Khalil speaks to him and is like, listen, like, why would you think that this company would want to reinvest in Black people that would only make them like go out of business? Basically, like, it's a business at the end of the day. You have to think ahead. Like, they were never gonna do that. And I was like,
he was spitting. That
was smart. I never thought of that. I never thought of that.
He was spitting. He was spitting, and it's true. It doesn't make any sense from a business like understanding capitalism. I thought I'd mention capitalism a lot more in this discussion than I did. Yeah. But capitalism, fundamentally, it's the system we operate in. It's about money. It's very, very basic. It's about making as much money as you can. Sure, social impact is important, but if you're a business, your primary interest is to your stakeholders. It's to your shareholders. Sorry, and that entails making as much money as you can.
Yeah,
like social impact is great, but it's always going to be secondary to making as much money as you can. So it doesn't make any sense. From a high-end fashion label, didn't even realize or understand why they fucked up in the first place. Clay doesn't really have any like Black people in any sort of position at the high levels of the organization. They're not going to be the architects of change, and the people that they got in are as amicable to the way they operate as anyone. Do you know what I mean? It's not, they're not bringing in anybody who's actually going to advance like and change to their system. So I thought what Khalil said was really, really intelligent. Really liked it.
And especially when you're just using buzzwords as a means to make money as well. Like, that we can name so many companies that will use like social impact and will use these words. And we're all guilty of it. Like, we will see a company that says that they're green and we're like, oh, well, they're green. So like, I'm doing something here that's like helping the environment. When really, like, they might be green in one sense, but like not green in another sense.
Super.
So companies are like really good at knowing their customers as they should, really, if they're trying to make more money. Like, they know right now that they know the buzzwords that the consumer is trying to hear, and so we'll use those buzzwords to keep the sales coming in. And I won't name companies. Because I'm trying to stay alive. But there are countless that we can think of that will use these words to keep us going, like walking through the doors. I thought this episode was really well done. But can we just talk about Darius for a minute?
Before we get into that, can we do quick fashion talk? So Marcelo, who's the designer, when he was presenting the prototypes of other shirts he was designing, the FUBU shirt was in there.
The who?
The FUBU shirt. From the episode FUBU, that with Small Ernest from when Ernest was in high school in season 2. The FUBU shirt was there.
The like yellow one, the yellow one.
Yellow and black one.
I didn't clock that.
I was like, okay, why is that there? But anyway, so that was interesting. But then and also the more on the nose kind of shirt was Alfred's shirt, the Gucci with fake on right in front of it.
Yeah.
Which was it was. I mean, I don't know. It was so on the nose. I'm like, is there something deeper in there that I'm missing? But whatever. I thought it was a cool shirt. I have nothing else to say on that.
Money gang.
But yeah. Anyway, talk about the B story to this, Darius, and the quest for Jolaf. You know.
Okay, yeah, that was that. When he also Jolaf, I was like, here we go. I was like, here we go.
You weren't a fan?
No, I was like, at first I was like, this is a lot. You don't need to do that. Do you know what I mean? And I think also it's just because that like they just remind us in the most random ways that he's Nigerian. Because I'm not gonna lie, like I forget.
Same. Which is why they're reminding you.
Yeah. So when he said John Price, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's Nigerian. But then the actual quest for John Price was like, I loved it. I loved it. The fact that Eniola, but I would say the only like question I have is that Eniola wrote down. So Eniola was their like assistant.
Yeah, I guess.
She wrote down that Darius wanted jollof rice. Just couldn't suggest one place that he could have got the jollof rice from, because then they had another woman come over and be like, hey, like, we don't know where to get the jollof rice from. Like, where do you usually get it? And maybe the point was that like they wanted to get it from exactly where he wanted to get it from, which is fine. But then I was also like, if her name is Eniola, she's Nigerian, she would know where to get the jollof rice. But anyway, so they go
just because you're in the spaces doesn't mean you have the cultural capital.
That's true. Maybe let me just say, if it was me, I would have said, hey girl, what is this? But anyway, cool. So then they find this place. I was loving it. The baby was eating pounded yam. I said, yes, Jesus, do it for me.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Do it for me, Lord. Yes. And you know, I was living for the vibes, loving it. You know, the music was playing. I said, wow, fantastic. I'm loving it. Yes. I wish they gave us a name of the shop, do you know what I mean? Or something. But anyway, it's all good. Even the scene of like the little snippet of the Nollywood film, I said,
yeah,
he has done it.
Aaron Stone.
I was like, he has done it. I love it. I loved it. And then, you know, when he was explaining to the lady, you know, oh, what does Niger mean? And I was like, oh, yes, living for it. Love it. And then it all goes south, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically the woman sees that this business is like successful. She likes the food, she likes the vibe, etc. I need to mention she's also white. And she and her, is it a boyfriend or husband or fiance?
Partner.
They do this thing where they like build up like small food businesses, basically. So that's their gig. And so she sees this business and she goes, we'll have that. And so literally puts them out of business and opens up a food truck with cheesy jollof rice.
Niger ball.
Called
a Niger bowl. Yeah.
Called Niger bowl with cheesy jollof rice. Cheesy jollof rice. When she said cheesy jollof rice, I said, excuse me.
I nearly fell out my bed. I nearly got up and fell out the bed.
And the thing is, like, it's actually disgusting how accurate this is, in the sense of like, some man them in these food trucks will put cheese on something and say, oh yeah, new things. Oh my gosh, yes, we are like, this is a culture clash because we put cheese
fusion.
on it. It's like,
it's a new fusion.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, you actually just added cheese, and you've added cheese to a dish that is actually sacrilege. Like, you shouldn't. What? Why?
Because it's a fusion, Queenie. You know, you get it or you don't. It's a fusion.
And then they also had a dish called the Darius, which had like peaches and stuff because he's from
barbecued
Atlanta.
peach.
I was like,
or barbecue sauce and peach.
Oh, like, make it stop, please. It didn't even
I can't lie. I can't lie. That one there, I'm not gonna say I'll have it, but I am curious. I'm curious about all of these foods. I'm not gonna say I'll buy
You
them.
eating from Niger Bowl. Not you ordering food from Niger Bowl.
I didn't say that, but I'm just saying, you know, someone has done it in this world, and I'm curious to see what that's gonna
Just say it's you, Kojo. Just say it's you who's a cheesy jollof rice.
I'm
just
just
say you've done it.
But anyway, so this episode, that whole scene, yeah, it was funny and it was sad. It's funny because, you know, Darius centered scenes are always just hilarious, just in how absurd they can get and how they just spiral out of his control. Darius is a person who is, by definition, you know, he's a cloud. He just floats, and you don't know what you're gonna get with Darius. So his scenes always happen to be the most outlandish often. Him and Alfred, because Alfred is also super, he plays a straight man, super kind of just down to earth, very rigid, and so it's funny to kind of see absurdity surround him. But Darius, you're like, I don't know where this is gonna go. But yeah, to see it's sad in the sense that, you know, this is a story which is ongoing for so many communities across the world. Really, truly, gentrification is a real thing. You have, again, like this Sharon, her name is, who swoops in there. It's like, as you said, I have a bit of that. I have a bit of that. That's a bit of me. Who speaks? I thought I did, before even getting to the point of her opening the food truck and buying the actual business. I did think it was jarring, but, you know, common how, again, capitalism. Her first thought when getting to this place, she's like, "Oh, I love her." Like, to the woman who works. "Oh, I love her. I've got to get her business card." And I was like, not even like, I love her, I want to get to know her, I love her, like, I've got to, you know, come back in more often. It's like, got to get a business card because we scale up businesses. And this idea, in essence, what capitalism is about, it's just growth. So, and some people might not want to grow. They might just be happy where they are in their community. But it's this idea that, like, you could be making so much money from here, so much more money. Like, I might be okay. But obviously that, you know, she came in here and was like, we can make money here, and we can afford to buy straight from buy the business straight from the people who own the building. Which again happens all across London, that's for sure.
And it was so interesting as well to, like, see, like, obviously Darius now, when he's walking away, feels bad for, like, for putting this woman on, basically, is what he had done. But also, like, why would I ever think that by me taking this person to this restaurant that she would then put them out of business and take the idea for herself? Bonkers.
It is bonkers.
The last, but I want to say, sorry, that made a really good point about Darius being, like, he always finds himself in these situations and they just spiral out of control, because we saw it in episode 3, where he's literally just, like, speaking to this lady, what's her name, MK, was that her name? So he's speaking to MK, that whole situation spirals out of control. They find a note they find an address in episode 2 with an, like, you know, they find a note with an address on it. They go to this address, then they're killing Tupac. Like, he just keeps finding himself in these situations that spiral, and I wonder where he'll spiral to next in episode 7. I definitely
can't predict it. I know that. Definitely can't predict where this character is going to go. So
no, not at all. Not at all.
The last big, I guess, moment in this episode was we get the return of Van.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. Who comes back in the most cavalier tone. See her legs kicked up. Ern walks in, bewildered. This person's been missing for weeks, the mother of your child. Sends you a thumbs up emoji. And then you see her and you're like, yo. Oh, hey, Ern. Anyway, as I was. So, me also, like, Ern's like, what the fuck? What is going on? And then obviously she gets accused of this other white lady who comes in. Her name was Wendy in the credits. Wendy comes in. such a anyway. Wendy when Wendy comes in and accuses Van of stealing a wig, which I believe she did. To be honest, we saw Van. She be stealing. She be stealing.
She been stealing. Yeah.
So, and we don't get the answer to that when Ern asks her the question a bit later on. But Wendy comes in, accuses them of stealing. They manage to get rid of her, and then Ern also is able to parlay that situation into getting a free room at the place. Which is, again, going back to the point of kind of giving back. There's this idea of like taking, giving back, taking from like these places of power, these white-owned institutions, and giving back for better or worse.
Knowing how to do it, because I would have never thought to myself like, oh, this woman who isn't even staying here, I'm not staying here. I've been accosted in this hotel. Let me now swindle myself a free room. Like, why would that even cross my mind? But Ern is just so good at it now, at just knowing where he can get things from, how to get things. And I think, it's great. He's obviously come so far.
Yeah.
In doing that. And when I saw that, I was like, I need to start doing that. Like,
up your game.
Knowing where and how I can get things, not just for myself, but for the people around me.
Yeah, up your game.
100%. Because dude, off the bat was like, just out of nowhere, like, I still don't have my bags, like, oh yeah, we'll upgrade you to the penthouse suite. I was like, excuse me. You just have to know how to speak in these settings, I guess. And I guess Ern is just really good at reading the room.
Yeah. Really is. So they're in the room, Ern and Van. You see the mood is like where the mood is at. They're playing Bad Bad Not Good. They're playing, also got the tunes going. It's all lovely. Oh, I know this tune. Oh yeah. Like they're playing High as Coyote and Bad Bad Not Good. They got vibes.
Yeah.
And they share that moment where they embrace at first, like just it's like a hug. It's like one of those kind of face-to-face conversations, and they're getting closer and closer. I'm like, oh, this is actually very romantic. This is super, like the energy around this moment is really nice. Erna asks her the question, did you steal a wig? And I was like, oh, it's not going to get there. I was like, oh, okay. But we don't get an answer because they kiss. I'm like, okay.
Well, she kisses him to shut him up.
Yeah. And then she disappears in the morning and gets a phone call. I'm like, who's calling? But he doesn't pick up anyway. So maybe that will become something in the next episode. Maybe not. But it's Van continues to be an enigma. In many respects. I want to get more from her. Like, she's clearly going through something with like obviously her job and like leaving that to kind of just go around Europe. Not with the guys, close to the guys, but not with them because she's doing her own thing. She's meeting them at these different spots. It's very interesting. Socks, we didn't see Socks in this episode as well, so don't know what happened there.
I think Van, it's it is strange, and I'm kind of like, she's the fourth, like, if we're talking about the four highest paid actors on the show, she's in that four, right? As in, the show is
she's one of the supporting cast. She's one of the main characters. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's interesting that she's had approximately 5 lines in this whole season. I would say it's probably the easiest bag she's got in her whole career. Unless we see like more from her in episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10.
We're gonna have to.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like, why is she so high up on this cast list?
I mean, she should be. Let's not that. Like, she's important for the story, but it's just, how is she going to factor into this season? You know, like
that's what I mean.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
right now, it's not really, the sense isn't sensing, but I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will make sense soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of takes us to the end.
Oh, sorry.
Go on. No, go on.
I was gonna say, in comparison to like last season, where we got like her and Ern going to this German Oktoberfest situation, and like, all of that. But anyway, that was it. I thought.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's episode 4, 5, and 6. Now at the mid-season point. So far so good. I'm looking forward to like thinking more about like kind of this season up until this point and discussing it over on Instagram. So do check out Everyone's a Critic on Instagram, Instagram.com/the Critic Spod. And yeah, let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you're finding the season so far. Has it lived up to expectations? It's hard to, with a show like Atlanta, I think it's hard to even pinpoint where it's going to go because it's so surreal and so interesting. It's very much unlike any show that we've seen. Yeah,
everything that's happened so far couldn't have been predicted. Like I couldn't have told you last episode that we would see Van again in episode 6. Like,
it's just been on a roller coaster and be like, all right, let's see where this goes. And then figure it out as we're going along. But yeah, Queenie, as always, lovely breaking down these episodes with you. I'm gonna enjoy kind of thinking about the season up to this point. And yeah, we look forward to talking about the mid-season with you next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Fun times. Thanks, Kojo.
As always.
Thanks for watching. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.